Hello everyone and welcome back to my channel. Today I'm actually going to do a little story time. I haven't done this in a really long time. I think the last time I actually sat down and did like a story time type video was when I ran the LA Marathon 2 years ago. But today I wanted to, try out this type of video and see how it goes. So I decided on the subject for this video about a week ago when I was retelling this story to a friend, and I was like, I feel like that would make a good story time. So I'm going to tell you guys about one of the scariest things that's ever happened to me. It was a time I got into a car accident in college. I fell asleep at the wheel and totaled my very first car. So let's dial it back a little bit. This was my sophomore year of college. I was working two jobs. One was at Disneyland and one was at Sephora at downtown Disney, so I was like always in that area. And I went to college about a 30-minute drive from that area. My commute wasn't that bad, but during rush hour it could take like upwards of an hour to get home from work. And my accident happened during finals week, so that whole week I had been like up studying, and then I was also working. So it was a pretty chaotic week. I wasn't really sleeping that well, which is why I think this happened. So I was a sophomore in college. I lived with 6 other girls, so there was like literally always something happening at our house. And I had been up the night before studying for my finals, and then I had to open the next day at Sephora. So I hadn't really like slept that well. I'd been scheduled, I think, until 12, but I was like on call-ish until 3. And usually the way it worked was if we weren't busy, I could leave at 12, but they could keep me up until 3. And I remember that day I was just like, please let me go home. Like, I'm so tired. I was up studying last night and I'm just really tired. I just want to go home. But of course, as luck would have it, they kept me on until 3 o'clock. 3 o'clock in like Southern California speak is rush hour traffic. I left work at 3 to get home, and I was like sitting in traffic the entire way through. I had had this issue since high school, since I started driving, where I would kind of nod off while I drove, which is a bad habit. I still remember like one of the first times it happened. I commuted to high school. My high school was 17 miles away from my parents' house. So as soon as I could drive, I would drive myself to school. And I remember there was one time I was driving to school and I started getting sleepy and I started nodding off and my car started veering to the right. So I was like about to cross over into the other lane, but luckily I like snapped awake really quickly and I was able to correct the direction of my wheels and go back to driving straight. I know it's like such a bad habit. But this accident actually made it never happen to me again. Like, I snapped out of that habit real quick. So this day I had been sitting in rush hour traffic. I was just trying to get home, and on top of that, my radio had broken in my car, I think the week before. Just like some internal wiring issue, and I was poor, I couldn't pay to fix it. So I basically like had nothing to listen to. It was dead silent. I was sitting in rush hour traffic. There are like tips for when you're getting sleepy behind the wheel, little things you can do to help keep yourself awake. Roll down your window, chew gum, call someone, hands-free of course. Pull over and take a nap. That one never resonated with me. I was like, I can make it home. I don't need to pull over and take a nap. Like, I'm fine. So while I was sitting in traffic, I remember I rolled my windows down. I started chewing gum. And at this point, like I said, I was living with 6 other girls. So I had 6 people that I could call to basically just keep me awake. And for some reason on this day, I decided to call the one roommate who I like never talked to on the phone. I don't know why I chose to call her. I literally like lived with one of my best friends, so I could have called her, but I think she was at work. Anyway, so I called like my one roommate who we barely talked. She was not a very talkative person, and I decided, oh, I'm gonna call her to help keep me awake. So I remember I called her and we were talking, and our conversation probably lasted like 2 minutes. And then I was like, all right, well, I guess I'll go now, because we didn't have really anything in common. So then I was like, well, crap, like now what do I do? I was like, but I'm almost home. I'm so close to home. I'll just power through it and I'll be fine. And statistics show that the majority of car accidents happen within a 2-mile radius of your home. So I believe my accident was literally on the 2-mile mark from my house. So I'm driving. don't fall asleep while you're driving hacks were not working. I remember I got to my exit and I was like, all right, almost home free. And then I started nodding off. So the way that my exit was you exited and then at the end of the exit was a signal light. I fell asleep at the signal light. I don't know if someone honking at me woke me up, but I do remember nodding back awake and being like, oh my God, I'm so close to home. Like, stop falling asleep. Because at this point, like the whole drive over, I was like starting to, you know, when you're like I was doing that basically the whole drive over, which is when I started implementing all the driving while drowsy hacks that were just not working for me. I knocked out at the signal light at the bottom of the exit, and when I finally came to, I just like kind of like slapped myself. I think I actually literally like slapped myself, like, stop falling asleep. Stop falling asleep. So then I start driving, and then maybe 3 or 4 lights down, I passed out. I was in the very right lane because to get to my house I had to make a right, so I was in the very right hand lane, and the way that this exit was to the right was a ravine because I lived by the beach. There's like a water, I guess it wasn't really a ravine, it was like a canal basically, like it was, the ocean was right there, and to the left was oncoming traffic, slender divider, all that good stuff. So I'm in the very right lane because I'm preparing to make a right. So I fall asleep, and for some reason I veer my wheel all the way to the left to the point where I end up crashing into the center divider, but instead of hitting my side, which should be the side that hits first, I hit the passenger side. And I was so asleep, I did not feel the impact. I woke up as the airbag was deflating, so I didn't even feel the airbag go off. Like, that's how tired I was. I do not recommend driving when you're that tired. I should have pulled over. I should have taken like a really quick 10-minute power nap or something. I should have like slept in my car before I drove home in the parking lot of my work. But I decided to drive, which was not the smartest idea. By the time I came to, the airbag was deflating. I looked over and literally, I'm not even joking, part of my engine was inside my car on the passenger side. Like, that's how hard I hit the car. Thank God I didn't hit my side, because if I had hit my side, I would have severely injured my legs, if not completely severed them off. Like, it was bad. So at this time, as I told you, one of my other jobs was at Disneyland. Basically, it required me to have no blemishes on my face, no scratches or scars of any kind. So as soon as I came to and realized what had happened, the first thing I did was pull down my rearview mirror and like check my face to make sure that it wasn't scratched. I know it's so bad, but at the time, like, that was my main job. And if I had severely injured my face in any way, I would have lost my job. That was the first thing I did, and I was like, okay, my face is fine. But I had like bruised ribs and a seatbelt abrasion from where I was wearing my seatbelt. That was literally like the extent of my injuries. After I checked my face, I did my face check, I stumbled out of the car. I looked at my car and what I had done to it. Mind you, half of my car was in oncoming traffic because I hit the center divider, but like, this is the center divider, my car was like this because I had hit the passenger side and not my side. So when I got out of my car like an idiot, I was basically in oncoming traffic, but luckily the cars were veering away from the accident, from my wreckage. I got out of my car, I stared at my car, and I just yelled, oh! I was real in shock. And then I noticed there had been a guy in a truck with his daughter who had pulled over, because I'm assuming he had seen the whole thing happen, and he was like a good Samaritan. He pulled over and he called 911 for me. After he called 911, he was so nice. I wish I had gotten his name because I wish I could have thanked him. He stayed with me until firefighters came to assess what was happening. I think because like when he saw that I'd stumbled out of the car, that I was okay. They knew I didn't need an ambulance, like I was fine. So once like the fire department came, they asked me how this happened. And of course the first thing they asked me was, have you had anything to drink? And I was like, no, I was just sleepy. I fell asleep while I was driving. And I explained to them that it was like finals week and I had opened at work this morning, and they kept me longer than I thought, and I was a lot more exhausted than I actually thought I was. First person I called was my best friend who I lived with, and I told her what happened because I needed someone to come pick me up. Obviously I couldn't drive my car back because it was totaled. It was a complete wreck. So she came and picked me up, and then I called my mom, and then of course when I called my mom, that's when I started like bawling because it finally like hit me what had happened. My friend took me home, and then my mom came and got me, because I wasn't living with my parents at this point. So my mom came and picked me up and took me to urgent care. So I specifically remember being like, oh, can I get Vicodin? Like, I'm really in pain. And my mom looked at me, shot me with these like evil, angry eyes and was like, how do you know what that is? I'd never taken it, but I had heard about it and I was like, oh, I want Vicodin because I'm in pain. And they didn't give me Vicodin. They gave me just like extra strength ibuprofen, which I was kind of mad about because it actually did nothing. I was still in pain after taking it. But yeah, my mom was mad that I was asking about Vicodin. Disclaimer, I had never tried it, so I didn't know what I was asking for. I just knew that that was a painkiller, so I don't know. So fast forward to maybe a few weeks later, because I had to clean out my car at the impound lot because it was totaled, so they were just gonna sell it for scrap. It was really weird to go back and actually like see what my car looked like pulled away from the wreckage. I remember when I got to the impound lot, the guy who greeted me was like, okay, which car is yours? And I described my car to him. And he was like, oh, so like who is driving this car? And I was like, oh, that was me. And he was like, wait a minute. How are you walking? How are you not in a wheelchair right now? And I was like, I don't know. He's like, you're very lucky. And like when he said that to me, like it hadn't really hit me. So many things could have gone wrong in this accident where my life would be completely different today. If I hadn't veered so left, I probably would have ruined my legs. 98% of driving while drowsy accidents ends in a fatality, so if I had veered right instead of left, I would have driven my car into the water and I could have drowned. There were just all these little tiny things that happened or didn't happen where I was able to come out of this accident basically unscathed. I can tell you this, after this happened, I literally never nodded off behind the wheel ever again. To this day, I still haven't. I was very traumatized by that accident. The car was totaled, I had to take everything out. And then when I was actually like assessing the damage, that's when I realized like part of my engine was inside of my car on the passenger side. Literally my whole section was fine. The whole front bumper was pretty smashed up, but my whole section was pretty much intact. Like I had guardian angels like following me around that day. I guess the moral of the story is do not drive while you're drowsy. I know it sounds like duh, common sense, but I used to do it all the time. I know for me, like as a high school student and a college student, I feel like I was always tired. I feel like I have a lot more energy now than I did back then, but I was always sleepy. And like, sitting behind the wheel, it's like the lull of the road. You kind of get in a weird zone, at least I used to, and I would start to nod off. It's a horrible habit, and I'm so glad I broke it. I wish it didn't take a car accident for me to break that habit. If you're tired, don't get behind the wheel. The results can be as bad as driving under the influence. I actually ended up getting a speeding ticket right before this accident. I had to go to traffic school, and at traffic school, I actually learned that 98% of driving while drowsy accidents are fatal. And I was just like, wow, how lucky am I that I was not that statistic. A seatbelt burn and a couple bruised ribs, but other than that, I was fine. I was walking, I was okay. I hope you guys enjoyed this video, maybe learned a little something. Moral of the story, don't drive while you're drowsy because all those hacks don't actually work. Opening your window doesn't work. When you're tired, your body is telling you you need to sleep, so you should probably pull over, grab a little 10-minute power nap or something, and just, you know, let your body rest a little bit because you don't want to end up in an accident like me because it could be a lot worse. So yeah, I hope you guys enjoyed my story time. If you guys like these, please let me know. And don't forget to like and subscribe and comment and all that good stuff.